Happy Hogmanay, everyone! If you're not Scottish, Happy New Year's Eve. We call it Hogmanay. It is like the biggest holiday in the Scottish calendar, including St Andrew's Day. Like, we don't care about St Andrew's Day. Hogmanay is where it's at. I wanted to do something to celebrate the end of the year and the start of the new year and all that good stuff with you all. We're just gonna have a really, really chill end of the year, and we're gonna come back January 1st or whenever I decide to make a video for the first week of January in full bookish force. Now, saying that, this is still a bookish video and you will see why in a minute. You guys obviously know that I am Scottish, right? If you don't, hi, I'm Scottish. Shouldn't really be a surprise. But what you probably don't know is that Scotland has its own language, and no, not Gaelic or Gaelic, I don't fucking know which way you're meant to pronounce that. We have another language that us Scots use every single day, but it's kind of forgotten about, and people like to argue that it's not a language, but it is a language, and that is Scots. People like to say that it's just dialect, it's just slang, it isn't an actual language, but it is. And my evidence of that is that the 80th translation of Harry Potter was Harry Potter in Scots. So there you go. You don't translate books to slang, you translate to languages. So I don't know why, but I just really wanted to read Harry Potter in Scots to you guys. It's probably going to be an absolute mess because Scots, as I was saying, people don't believe it's a language. So it's never written. Like, in my 22 years of living, I have only ever used Scots verbally. It's only ever spoken and like listened to, and reading it is really hard. Like, I struggle to read aloud anyway, but I have just spent like half an hour while my camera was charging giving this a bash out loud, and it's a struggle, especially because a lot of words are written slightly differently to how I would say them. Again, because of dialects, we do switch up. Like, Estelle's from the Highlands, not quite the Highlands, but like she's up north, and I'm down Lowlands Central Belt, so we have very different dialects. Like, when we go full Scottish, I struggle to understand her sometimes. But as I was saying, reading it aloud is quite difficult. There's words that I haven't actually used before because, again, Scots, the higher up in Scotland you get, the broader the accent and the more they're likely to use like a shitload of words that aren't English. Whereas for me, it's more just the way that I say things. So two would be te, or if it's a number two, trois, which sounds like the French three. Anyway, basically, Lowland Scots people will just slightly change words around, whereas the further north you go, the more likely it is they have a completely new word. So it's going to be difficult for me to read aloud but not understand, and it's going to be difficult for you to hear and understand, so it's going to be an absolute mess. But I just think we all love Harry Potter. If you don't love Harry Potter, bye, I guess. But we're doing it. We're going to read Harry Potter in Scots today, so grab yourself a cup of tea, some biscuits, curl up in bed and go for a nap. I don't know, do what you want while this video's on, because it's going to be a fucking long one, because I'm probably going to be like, I don't know what that word is. But it was this or French, and at least I speak this language. So I'm gonna really try and not put an accent on, because when, like right now, I'm trying to be, what's the word, I'm trying to like pronounce my words and like be good with diction and stuff. Whereas if I'm talking to my family or my friends, it's just right, and it would make no sense to you guys. But when somebody says, hey, speak Scottish, I pure go like full on like Glaswegian or something. I go so thick, and this isn't who I speak. Well, maybe it is, but I feel like I'm putting it on. Anyway, you get my point. So I'm gonna try and like not fake the accent so that it gets really, really complicated and confusing and inaudible, ineligible, whatever. But equally, I don't want to be trying to read it with a proper English accent because it's Scots. So we're just going to try and use my normal voice, but that's like a really hard thing for me. So anyway, roll the intro, let's get reading. Harry Potter and the Philosopher Stane by J.K. Rowling. Translated into Scots by Matthew Fett. Chapter 1. The Laddie Wha Lived. Mr and Mrs Dursley o' Number Fower Privet Loan were proud to say that they were gey normal, thank you very much. They were the last folk you was jalouse would be tangled up with onything unco or weird because they just didn't hod with havers like yon. Mr Dursley was the head bummer o' a firm called Grunnings that made drills. He was a muckle beefy bucket man with a stumpy wee craigie, although he did hae a gey muckle mouser. Mrs Dursley was a skinny malinky blonde-headed woman whose craigie was just about twice as long as other folks, which was awfully handy as she spent sae muckle time keeking our garden fences, nebbing at the neighbours. The Dursleys had a wee son called Dudley, and to them there wasna a brawer laddie in the hale world. The Dursleys had a' him they wanted, but as well as he a' him they had a secret, and their worst fear was as somebody would neb it out. They didn't think they could thole it if onybody found out about the Potters. Mrs Potter was Mrs Dursley's sister, but the ane hadna seen the other in a lang while. To tell the truth, Mrs Dursley pretended she didn't hae a sister, because her sister and yon numpty o' a husband o' hers were as un-Dursleyish as was possible to be. The Dursleys were feared to think what the neighbours would say if the Potters ever showed up in their street. The Dursleys kent that the Potters had a wee son as well, but they hadn't ever seen him. This laddie was another good reason for keeping the Potters awa. They didn't want Dudley haeing own hand today with a bairn like yin. When Mr and Mrs Dursley got out of bed on the dreet grey Tuesday or Story stairs, there was naething about the Drumley lift outside to let on that unco and weird things would soon be happening all over the country. Mr Dursley chanted to himself as he walled about his maist dreet grey tie for work, and Mrs Dursley gabbed awa blithely as she warstled a skirling Dudley into his high chair. None o' them catched sick to a muckle Jenny Hewlett flicktering past the window. At 8:30, Mr Dursley lifted his briefcase, gied Mrs Dursley a wee kiss on the cheek, and drax down to gie Dudley a kiss, but couldna, because Dudley was no gone his dinger, and placed her in the wa's with cereal. What a wee rogie, laughed Mr Dursley as he left the house. He got into his car and back to Number Fower's drive. It was on the corner of the street that he got the first glisk that something wasna richt. A bodroun's reading a map. For a second, Mr Dursley didn't tak in what he'd seen. Then he juked his head round and had another keek. There was a tabby cat standing on the corner of Privet Loan, but there wasna a map in sicht. What was wrong with him? Maybe it was a pliski o' the licht. Mr Dursley blinked and glowered at the bodrins. It glowered back. As Mr Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the bodrins in his mirror. It was no reading the sign that said Privet Loan. No, keeking at the sign, just. Bodrins couldn't read maps or signs. Mr Dursley gied himself a shack and pit the bodrins out his head. As he drove to the town, he thought on naething apart from a muckle order o' drills he was hoping to get that day. But on the edge of the town, drills were hunting fae his mind by something else. As he waited in the usual morning traffic jam, he couldna help noticing there seemed to be a wheenie folk going about busket up in unco clays. Folk in cloaks. Mr Dursley couldna thole folk that wore unco clays. The things you saw on young folk nowadays. He jaloused this was some glaikant new fashion. He diddled his fingers on the steering wheel and he glowered at a bourash o' Egypts standing no far away. They were whispering together all excited. Mr Dursley was scunnered to see that ane or twa of them weren't all that young themselves. Here, that manny there had to be older than he was, and wearing an emerald green cloak and all. The cheek o' it. But then it struck Mr Dursley that this was probably just one of these stupid carry-ons. Obviously their folk were out collecting for charity. Aye, that would be it. The traffic moved on, and after a wee minutes, Mr Dursley drove into the car park at Grunnings, thinking only about drills. Mr Dursley aye sat with his back to the window in his office on the 9th floor. If he hadna, he micht have found it a bitty harder to think only about his drills that morning. He didn't see the Hewletts swifting past in braid daylicht, though folk down in the street did. They pinted and gawked with their mouths hanging open as Hewlett after Hewlett sped by our head. Maist of them had never seen a Hewlett, even at nicht. Mr Dursley, however, had a perfectly ordinary Hewlett-free morning. He looked at 5 different folk, he made a wheen important telephone calls and reared at a few more folk. He was in an awfully good tid until dinner time, when he thought he'd stretch his legs and gang out and buy himself a snister for the Baxter's shop over the road. He'd forgot all about the folk in cloaks until he passed a hauntle of them next to the Baxters. He gave them a crabbit look as he passed. He didn't ken why, but something about them fashed him. This lot were whispering in excited voices as well, and he couldn't see a single collecting tin. It was on his way back past them, carrying a muckle donut in a poke, that he got a quick lug full of what they were saying. The Potters, that's richt, yon's what I heard. Aye, their laddie Harry. Mr Dursley stapped deed. His blood ran cold with fear. He keeked back at the whisperers as if he wanted to say something to them, but he thought he'd better no. He gnashed back over the road, hurried up to his office, snatched at his secretary no to disturb him, grabbed at his telephone and had just about finished dialling his hame number when he changed his mind. He put the receiver back down and clapped his mouser, thinking, no, he was being daft. Potter wasnae a by ordinary name. He was sure there were hundreds of folk called Potter who had a son called Harry. When he thought about it, he wasn't even sure his new boy was called Harry. He'd never even seen the laddie. It might have been Harvey, or Hamish. There was nae pint in fashion Mrs. Dursley. She was aye bleck affronted at ony mention o' her sister. He didn't blame her, if he'd had a sister like yon. But all the same, they folk in cloaks. He found it far harder to think about drills that afternoon, and when he left the building at 5 o'clock, he was sae worried that he walked straight into somebody just outside the door. Sorry, he grunted, as the totty old mannie stumbled and near fell down. It was a wee seconds afore Mr. Dursley realised that the man was wearing a violet cloak. He didn't seem put out at all about being just about cowped into the ground. It was just the opposite. His face burst into a braid smile, and he said in a purely voice that made folk passing by glower, "Dinna be sorry, my dear sir, for naething can vex me the day. Rejoice, for you ken wha has gone at last. Even muggles like yourself should be having a party to celebrate this blithe day." And the old man put his arms around Mr. Dursley's belly, curried him for a wee minute, and then whacked off. Mr. Dursley stood thrilled to the spot. A complete stranger had just come up and curried into him. He thought he had been called a muggle, too, whatever that was. He was flied. He hurried to his car and hid at home, hoping it was all in his imagination, which he had never hoped afore, because he didn't hold with imagination. As he powed into the driveway on number 4, the first thing he saw, and it did his tid nae good, was the tabby cat he'd spotted that morning. It was now sitting on his garden wall. He was sure it was the same ane. It had the same ken marks around its een. "Awa you go," said Mr. Dursley loudly. The bodrins didn't budge. It just gied him a carnivorous look. Did cats normally carry on this way? Mr. Dursley wondered. Trying to keep the heat, he got into the house. He told himself not to say anything to his wife. Mrs. Dursley had had a fine, ordinary-like day. Over their tea she blethered awa about Mrs. Next Door's problems with her doctor, and who Dudley had learnt a new word, nut. Mr. Dursley tried to carry on just as normal. When Dudley was put to bed, he gaed by in the front room in time to hear the latest report on the evening news. And finally, bird watchers in all the airs he reported that the nation's hoolits haven't been themselves today. Although hoolits normally hunt at night and are hardly ever seen in daylight, hundreds of the birds have been seen fleeing all ways since dawn day. Experts had no idea why the hoolits had suddenly changed their sleeping pattern. The newsreader couldn't hide a grin. Awfully mysterious. And now over to Jim McGuffin with the weather. Are we going to get ony more showers of hoolits the nicht, Jim? Weel, Ted, said the weather mannie, I dinna ken about that, but it's not just hoolits that hae been acting a wee bit strange today. Viewers as far apart as Kent, Yorkshire and Dundee hae been phoning in to tell me that instead of the rain I promised yesterday, they've had a blooter o' shooting stars. Maybe folk hae been high in their bonfire nicht early. It's not till next week, but I can promise it'll be a week nicht the nicht. Mr. Dursley sat frozen in his armchair. Shooting stars all over Britain, hoolits fleeing in daylight, fairly some folk in cloaks going about the place, and a whisper about the Potters. Mrs. Dursley came in the front room carrying 2 cups of tea. It was nae good. He'd hate to say something to her. A wee bit fear, he cleared his thrapple. Petunia dear, you've no heard onything fae your sister lately, have ye? As he catch you would be, Mrs. Dursley was bleck affronted. After all, they normally pretended she didn't even hae a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Uncouth stuff on the news, Mr. Dursley mumped. Hoolits, shooting stars, and there was a burach with funny looking folk in town the day. Say what? Snashed Mrs. Dursley. Well, I just thought, maybe it was something to do with, you ken, her lot. Mrs. Dursley sucked her tea through bloodless lips. Mr. Dursley wondered if he dared tell her he'd heard the name Potter, but Dory he didn't. Instead, he said, as joco as he was able, "Their laddie, he'd be about ages with Dudley now, would he no?" "Nae doot," said Mrs. Dursley crossly. "What's he called again? Howard, is it no?" "Harry. A common, scunnersome name as far as I'm concerned." "Oh, aye," said Mr. Dursley, his heart sinking horribly. "Aye, you're richt enough, dear." He didn't say another word about it as they gathered up the stairs to their bed. While Mrs. Dursley was in the bathroom, Mr. Dursley creeped over to the bedroom window and keeked down into the front garden. The bodrins was aye there. It was glowering down private lawn as though it was waiting on something. Was he just imagining all this? Could all this hate onything to do with the Potters? If it did, if it got out that they were related to a pair o', well, he didn't think he could dole it. The Dursleys got into bed. Mrs. Dursley fell over into sleep quickly, but Mr. Dursley lay awake, turning it all over in his head. His less comforting thought afore he fell hour was that even if the Potters were part of all this, there was nae reason for them to come ony war near him and Mrs. Dursley. The Potters kent fine weel what he and Petunia thought about them and their kind. He couldna see how he and Petunia could get tangled up in onything that might be gone on. He ganted and turned over. It couldna affect them. He couldna have been mair wrang. Mr. Dursley micht hae been dovering into a fitful sleep, but the bodrins on the wall outside was nae a wabbit at all. It was sitting still as a stookie, its een thrilled on the far corner of Privet Lawn. It didn't even blink when a cord drawer slammed in the next street, nor when twa hoolets flichtered by our head. In fact, it was near midnight afore the bodrins budged at all. A man appeared on the corner of the bodrins, had been watching, appeared sae suddenly and soundlessly you'd hae thought he'd just papped up out the ground. The bodrin's tail jinked in its een grod narra. Naething like this man had ever been seen on Privet Lawn. He was lang, skinny malinky and awfu' old, gone by the siller o' his hair and beard, which were baith lang enough to tuck into his belt. He was wearing a long gown, a purple cloak that dicht the ground, and high-heeled buckled bits. His blue een were licked, bricked and glistened a hint half-moon glasses, and his neb was awfu' lang and squint, as though it had been broken at least twice. This man's name was Albus Dumbydykes. Albus Dumbydykes didn't seem to ken that he had just arrived in a street where a' hin fae his name to his bits wasna welcome. He was busy howking about in his cloak looking for someone, but he did seem to ken he was being watched, because he keekit up suddenly at the bodrins, that was aye glowering at him fae the other end of the street. For some reason the sight of the bodrins seemed to amuse him. He giggled and mumbled, "I should have kent." He found what he was looking for in his inside pooch. It seemed to be a siller cigarette lighter. He flicked it open, held it up into the air and clicked it. The nearest street lamp gaed out with a wee pop. He clicked it again. The next lamp flickered into darkness. 12 times he clicked the pit outer, until the only lichts left on the hale street were twa peery dots in the distance, which were the een o' the bodrins watching him. If onybody keeked out their window now, even the sharpied nebby Mrs. Dursley, they wouldna be able to see if ony him was happening down on the pavement. Dumbydykes slipped the pit outer back inside his cloak and set off down the street towards Number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to the bodrins. He didn't look at it, but after a moment he spoke to it. "Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall." He turned to smile at the tabby, but it was a wall. Instead, he was smiling at a rather dour-looking woman who was wearing square glasses, exactly the shape of the ken marks the cat had round its een. She was wearing a cloak and all, an emerald een. Her black hair was drawn into a ticked bun. She looked gey toosey. "Who did you ken it was me?" she spiered. "My dear Professor, I've never seen a bodrin sit so straight." "You'd be straight yourself if you'd been sitting on a bricked wall all day," said Professor McGonagall. "All day? Well, you know it's celebrating. I think I passed about a dozen feasts and parties on my way here." Professor McGonagall snarled angrily. "Oh aye, Obdy's celebrating all richt," she said impatiently. "You'd think they'd be a bit more careful, but no, even the muggles have noticed something's gone on. It was on their news." She jerked her head back at the Dursleys' dark front room window. "I heard it, flocks o' hoolets shooting stars. Well, they're no completely glaik it. They were bound to notice somehin. Shooting stars down Kent. I'll bet you that was Daedalus Diggle. He's always been a bit of a gomeril." "You cannae blame them," said Dumbydykes gently. "We've had hardly onything to celebrate for a leaving year." "I ken that," said Professor McGonagall crabbedly, "but that's nae reason to lose the heed. Folk have been richt middens, out on the randan in broad daylight, no even dressed in muggle claes, exchanging clishmaclavers." She flung a sharp sideways glance at Dumbydykes here, as though hoping he was going to tell her something, but he didn't, so she carried on. "A fine thing it would be if, on the vera day you ken wha seems to hae disappeared at lang least, the muggles found out about us all. I suppose he really is a wa, Dumbydykes." "It certainly looks that way," said Dumbydykes. "We hae muckle to be thankful for. Did you want a sherbet lemon?" "A what?" "A sherbet lemon. They're a kind of muggle sweetie I'm rather fond o'." "Nae thanks," said Professor McGonagall coldly, as though she didn't think this was the richt time for sherbet lemons. "As I say, even if you ken what is a wa, my dear Professor, surely a wice-like body like yourself can call him by his name. All this you ken wha havers. For a leaving year I've been trying to persuade folk to call him by his richt name, Voldemort." Professor McGonagall flinched, but Dumbydykes, while was unspeaking twa sherbet lemons, didna seem to notice. "It all gets sae confusing if we keep saying you ken wha. I hae never seen ony reason to be frightened o' saying Voldemort's name." "I ken you havena," said Professor McGonagall, sounding half beeline, half impressed. "But you're different. Obdy kens you're the only one you ken. Och, alright, Voldemort. was frichtin' though. You're making me soon grander than I am, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort had powers I will never hae. Ainly because you're well, noble to use them. It's lucky it's dark. I've no had a riddy like this since Madame Pomfrey told me she liked my new lug warmers. Professor McGonagall shot a sharp look at Dumbledore and said, the hoolets are naething to the rumours that are fleeing about. You ken what Obdy's saying about why he's disappeared, about what finally stabbed him? It seemed that Professor McGonagall had racked the points she was most anxious to discuss. The wrecked reason she had been waiting all day on a cod Stane wall, for neither as a Bodrins nor as a woman had she given Dumbledore such a piercing glower as she did now. It was plain that whatever Obdy was saying, she wasn't going to believe it until Dumbledore told her it was true. Dumbledore, however, was picking out a near sherbet lemon and didn't answer. What they're saying, she pressed on, is that last night Voldemort turned up in Godric's house. He gaed there to find the Potters. The rumour is that Lily and James Potter that they're dead. Dumbledore bowed his head and Professor McGonagall gawped. Lily and James, I can't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. Och, Albus. Dumbledore raxed out and clapped her on the shoulder. I ken, he said heavily. Professor McGonagall's voice trembled as she carried on. That's no all. They're saying he tried to kill the Potters, Wayne, Harry. But he couldn't. He couldn't kill that wee laddie. Nobody kens why or who, but they're saying that when he couldn't kill Harry Potter, Voldemort's power some way broke, and that's why he's gone. Dumbledore gave a dowie nod. It's true, bumbled Professor McGonagall. After all he's done, all the folk he's killed, he couldn't kill a wee laddie. It just bombazes me. Oh, all the things to stop him. But who in the name of heaven did Harry survive? We can only guess, said Dumbledore. We might never ken. Professor McGonagall pulled out a lace handkerchief and dicht her in a blower glasses. Dumbledore had a muckle sniff as he ta'en a goud watch for his pooch and keeked at it. It was a guy on Q watch. It had 12 horns but nae numbers. Instead, wee planets were flitting around the edge. It must have made sense to Dumbledore though, because he put it back in his pooch and said, Hagrid's late. I suppose it was him that told you I'd be here, am I recht? Aye, said Professor McGonagall, and I dinna suppose you're going to tell me why you're here of all places. I've come to bring Harry to his auntie and uncle. There is the only family he has left now. You dinna mean? You cannae mean the folk that bide here? Cried Professor McGonagall, low pinned to her feet and pointing at number 4. Dumbledore, you cannae. I've been watching them all day. You couldn't find 12 folk who are less like us. And they hae this son. I saw him kicking his mother all the way up the street greeting for sweeties. Harry Potter, come and bide here. It'll be good for him, said Dumbledore firmly. His auntie and uncle will be able to explain all into him when he's older. I've scrivet them a letter. A letter, repeated Professor McGonagall faintly, sitting back down on the wall. Really, Dumbledore, do you think you can explain all this in a letter? These folk will never understand him. He'll be famous, a legend. I wouldn't be surprised if the day wasn't kent as Harry Potter Day in the future. There will be books scrivet about Harry. Every bairn in our world will ken his name. That's right, said Dumbledore, looking off seriously out of the tap of his half-moon glasses. It would be enough to turn ony laddie's head. Famous afore he can walk and talk. Famous for sorry when he even mind. Can you no see he'll be far better grown up away from all that until he's ready to honor it? Professor McGonagall opened her mouth, changed her mind, swallowed, and then said, Aye, you're right, of course. But who is the lad to get in here, Dumbledore? She eyed his cloak suddenly, as though she thought he meant to Harry hiding in a below it. Hagrid's bringing him. You think it wise to trust Hagrid with something as important as this? I would trust Hagrid with my life, said Dumbledore. I'm no saying he's no got a heart o' corn, said Professor McGonagall forlornly, but you cannae pretend he's no a hasher. He does tend to... What was that? A light rumbling soon had cowed the silence around them. It grew steadily louder as they keeked up and down the street for some sign o' headlicht. It grew into a loud roar as they both looked up at the lift, and a muckle motorbike fell out of the air and landed on the road in front of them. If the motorbike was muckle, it was naething to the man sitting astride it. He was about twice as long as ony normal man and at least 5 times as braid. He just looked our big to be allowed, and said ramshackle. Lang tails o' bushy black hair and a beard hid maist o' his face. He had horns the size of dustbin lids, and his feet and their leather bits were like baby gairfish. In his muckle muscular arms he was holding a bundle of plaidies. Hagrid, said Dumbledore, sounding relieved. At last. "And where did you get that motorbike fae?" "Got a Leno at Professor Dumby sir," said the giant, skimming cannily off the motorbike as he spoke. "Aff young Sirius Black. I've got him, sir." "No problems, were there?" "Na, sir. Who saw but flattened, but I got him out all right afore the muggles started swarming all over it. He fell asleep as we were flying over Bristol." Dumby and Professor McGonagall booed for it over the bundle of Pleiades. Inside, just visible, was a wee bairnie, a laddie, sound asleep. Under a tuft of jet black hair over his forehead they could see an unco-shaped cut, like a jago-lichnin. "Is that whore?" whispered Professor McGonagall. "Aye," said Dumby. "He'll always hae that scar." "Could you no do something about it, Dumby?" "Even if I could, I wouldnae. Scars can come in useful. I hae in my cell aboon my left nap that's a perfect map of the London Underground. Well, gies him here, Hagrid. We'd better get this our way." Dumby ta'en Harry in his arms and turned towards the Dursleys' house. Could I no say cheerio to him, sir?" spoured Hagrid. He bent his muckle-toothed head over Harry and gied him what must have been a gay yoke, whiskery kiss. Then suddenly, Hagrid let out a yowl like a wounded dog. "Wheesht!" hissed Professor McGonagall. "You'll walk in the muggles." "Sorry," sobbed Hagrid, taking out a muckle-spotted handkerchief and burying his face in it. "But I canna stand it. Lily and James deed, and poor wee Harry after bide with muggles." Aye, it's all very sad, but keep the heed now, Hagrid, or we'll be found," Professor McGonagall whispered, clapping Hagrid kindly on the arm as Dumby stepped over the wee garden wall and walked to the front door. He put Harry softly down the doorstep, ta'en a letter out of his cloak, tucked it inside Harry's Pleiades, and then came back to the other twa. For a whole minute the three of them stood and looked at the wee bundle. Hagrid's shoulders shook. Professor McGonagall blinked furiously, and the skin-clin licht that usually shone frae Dumby een seemed to hide behind the wall. "Well," said Dumby at lang last. "That's that. We've no business staying here. We might as well gien and join the celebrations." "Aye," said Hagrid in a gay muffled voice. "I'd better get out of here with this biked. Good nicht, Professor McGonagall, Professor Dumby sir." Dicking his greeting in on his jacket sleeve, Hagrid swung himself onto the motorbike and kicked the engine into life. With a roar it rose into the air and off into the nicht. "I'll see you soon, nae doubt, Professor McGonagall," said Dumby nodding to her. Professor McGonagall blew her neb in reply. Dumby turned and walked back down the street. On the corner he stopped and ta'en out the silver pit outer. He clicked it once, and 12 balls of licht sped back to their street lamps so that Privet Lane suddenly loud orange, and he could make out a tabby cat snooving around the corner at the other end of the street. He could just see the bundle of Pleiades on the step on the flower. "Good luck, Harry," he murmured. He barreled round him with a swish of his cloak. He was gone. A breeze kittled the wheel-kept hedges of Privet Lane, which lay wheeshed and trig under the ink-black lift, the very last place you would expect astounding things to happen. Harry Potter rowed over inside his Pleiades without wakening up. Yin wee horn closed on the letter aside him, and he slept on, no kenning he was special, no kenning he was famous, no kenning he would be wakened in a few hours' time by Mrs. Dursley's screech as she opened the front door to put out the milk bottles, nor that he would spend the next few weeks being pooked and piked by his cousin Dudley. He couldna ken that at this very moment folk meeting in secret all over the country were lifting their glasses and saying in soft loud voices, "To Harry Potter, the laddie wha lived." And that's chapter 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and let me know if it's something that you're interested in. Like, I know we're reading more books in Scots, just let me know. But I hope you guys have had a really good 2018. If it wasn't quite what you wanted it to be, I hope 2019 is just so much better, and we're gonna read all the books this year, right? Well, next year, this year. It's basically 2019 now, right? If you like this, please give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I guess I'll see you guys next year. Bye!